Heyo, duckies and dice fiends! Welcome back. It is the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show, table talk show, old habits. I'm Kay. I'm one of your co-hosts, but you're not here to see me today. We've got my usual co-host and our incredible guest today. Before we jump in, thank you so much, Mallory, for the resubscription. We are up to, what was it there? I just had it open. I just had it the heck open. 3 months. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. But yes, we are here with Candace, the truly magnificent, as well as my co-host, David Lee. So before we hop in, David, who the heck is you and what the heck is we doing here?
Hi, I am Anguished, and this is the Chaotic Wholesome Tuesday Presents show of talking with our magnificent guest. But this is the Chaotic Wholesome Table Talk Show, currently the Tuesday Table Talk Show, where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better player, how to be a better GM, how to be a better person, all with a focus on intersectionality and inclusivity so that everybody can have a good time.
And we are joined today by a returning guest, an incredible performer, a true pleasure to have on. I can't believe we're lucky enough to have them. Candace, tell us just a little bit about yourself, if you would be so kind.
Hello, my name is Candace. You might know me as Candace the Magnificent. My pronouns are they, she. I'm unbearably awkward in all the wrong moments, like right now. I am excited to be here hanging out with some of my closest homies and my close homies in chat. Normally I'm just in chat going, wow, this is great. Yeah, preach on, y'all, preach on. And then now I'm here and I'm like,
Yep.
cool. I have things to say about stuff.
I have opinions.
That's right, I do.
I'll find them. Just a moment. Let me dig.
Most importantly, you have informed opinions, and I think one of the most important distinctions that people fail to make is the difference between an opinion and an informed opinion.
That's very true. I feel
everybody has an opinion on gumbo. I am right, however.
So
I have issues with okra, so I can't go there with gumbo.
Not all gumbo has okra. David will send
Not
you
even
a
half of
1,
gumbo
2, 3,
has
4,
okra.
5, 6-page rant about gumbo.
What about shrimp, though?
Be careful.
Not all gumbo has shrimp. Less than half of gumbo has shrimp in it.
Okay, bookmarking for later. Thank you. Okay. All right. Gotta talk about gumbo later.
As a lot of y'all know, I work in video games. And one of my, surprise, surprise, because I work in video games, some of my friends also work in video games. And yes, hashtag not all gumbo. And that's one of the things. Hey, Mike, welcome on in. One of the things about social media and Twitter especially is that everyone feels like they're entitled, like everyone is entitled to their opinion, and they feel like their opinion should be given the same weight as everyone else's. And so my friend, who has worked in video games for a very long time, someone makes an ill-informed, which I don't blame people for being ill-informed about the video game industry and how it works, because the video game industry is deliberately secretive about how it works. So if you don't know, I can't really be mad at you, but some kid makes an ill-informed statement about video games. My friend is like, that's not true. I've worked on these games and this is how it actually works. So the kid replies like, that's not fair, man. How am I supposed to compete with that? You're not. Your opinion is just not as good in this particular area. Like, informed opinions are really good and important. Welcome, Zykram.
I don't understand why people think that information and intellectualism is a competition. I feel like that's like the same mentality that these people that try to justify AI are making as well. They're like, well, how am I supposed to do art? I'm not artistic, and I want to be able to do art. So right, like, okay, well, I can't fix toilets. Does that mean that I should hire an AI to help me do that? No, I'm going to call somebody who has spent however many years in plumbing school to understand the physics and the laws of water and pipes and all that shit. And they're going to fix my shit for me. and I'm going to be perfectly happy about it, right? Not everybody's meant to do all the things, and it's okay to not know things. For me, the second that you think you know everything and the second you need to compete with your intellectualism, the second you become fucking dried up, stale, and irrelevant. Like, you need to be able to know new things. There's nothing I love more than sharing a new fact with somebody, even if it's a fact that they already know.
Robots in our toilet 2024.
One of my favorite memes that came out last year or the year before is they told us that AI and robots would take over our jobs so we would have more time to paint and make music and write. And instead, the robots came and did the painting and the writing and the music so that we would have more time to work.
Yes. And it's all garbage.
And yeah, the flip side of it
doesn't even matter.
The one that I really like is, why should I take the time to read something that someone couldn't take the time to write?
That's what I want to know. I'm in the job market. By day, I am a writer, technically a copywriter in the ad space. And I have been seeing more than a few jobs that are literally like, we need you to come and proofread our AI. Can you come in and
Can you make it pass a not AI test?
I'm like, am I going to help you replace me? No.
Right.
No, I will not. for $50,000 a year, you say? Oh,
yeah, absolutely not.
So attractive.
It's hilarious how many like literal full-on news stories I have read in the past like 4 or 5 years, because like people started using AI to like push out content before it was like part of the zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like during the pandemic, I would like read a news article and I'd be like, there's something really not right about this. Like there's something too robot about this. And then like all the news stories came out about like we're using AI for things, and I was like, that is. And friends of mine started tinkering with AI, and they would like send me screenshots, and they're like, look at how dumb and wrong this is, and I'm like, it's dumb and wrong. But even today, like you can just like go on, like not like Reuters or places like that hire actual journalists, but you could go out on the internet and places that are news, and especially the snippets. It's like these this is AI generated. This they don't just bury the lead anymore; they miss it.
Yeah.
But as much as I do enjoy this rabbit hole, we're here to talk about TTRPGs, which also is a problem. A lot of content that's being put out right now, modules are AI written, and those are. But we want to talk about some human-made stuff. Candace, I found it hilarious that you and I both started a Girl by Moonlight game with the word bloom in the title, and it was not the same game.
You're in Chrono Bloom, right?
Yes.
So what's funny is that Chrono something, I remember looking this up because we were trying to see if Bloom and Blight was already taken as a name. And there's a game called Chrono Cards, Bloom and Blight. So there's an actual game out there that combines both of our titles into one soup.
Wow.
Yeah, Girl by Moonlight has been surprisingly fun. The system itself, I have mixed feelings about the actual system. I like the flexibility of it, and I like that it really encourages kind of collaborative world building, and I like, of course, the reference that goes into Girl by Moonlight for the setting. I just feel like I don't roll well. And if you don't roll well, like you're just screwed the whole game. Yeah. And that part is real rough for me. I try not to get too in my feelings. We're telling a story about the loss. Our Girl by Moonlight group, we are called Bloom, Team Bloom. And all of us have names based on poisonous flowers. So I am Belladonna. And each of us have a playbook that goes into, who we are. So I'm the Harmony. So I kind of dug into my Steven Universe vibes and made a giant woman, technically. Belladonna is actually two people. One like extra kind of extra spatial, extraterrestrial, extra humanoid, whatever being, and named Bella. And then Donnie is this cute like androgynous trans mask person with a bad attitude, and they find each other, they fall in love, and now they're belladonna. And like I just roll like absolute garbage. If you're listening to the series, don't expect me to ever roll anything even coming close to a success, because I won't. And the only reason it works is because our leader has died and all of us are kind of falling apart in this first season. So when I fail, I can easily just be like, well, you know, a moment hit me, or it reminded me of this one time, or like excuses can be made so it's still narratively good. We just had a holiday special that was GM'd by Black Girl Mage, where our GM actually took over for the character who lost, our leader. She played her playbook. And it's cute. It's like a little body swap episode where we each take someone else's playbook. We don't have like our powers. So it's really cute. But it's been a lot of fun to make. And I don't know, like I just wish that I got better rolls sometimes.
I'm with you. I played Kinley in Girl by Moonlight. The time traveler.
Precious baby.
So completely out of time, completely confused about like, oh yes, we're going to be great friends. Well, it was so nice to finally meet you here. We're going to be great friends. What? What does that even mean? Like, oh yes.
Don't worry about it.
Says something very wise that a character needs to hear. And the character's like, wow, Kinley, that's very smart. Yes, you told me that. But yes, I also roll like hot garbage.
Mm-hmm.
It to the point where Kinley nearly died first episode. Like
yeah.
all of my wounds, all of my stress, it was bad. So yeah, I feel you on that big time. But
the problem is I'm usually GMing, and so when I roll poorly, it goes great for the players, and I hate that.
I have this gorgeous dice that is like black with these metal rainbow numbers.
Sexy.
And it is so pretty, and it rolls like garbage. I am only allowed to use this dice when I am GMing so that my players can succeed. And it's also one of those dice where the 1 says fuck me and the 20 says fuck you, and it's like, no, actually I'm really happy for you.
Yeah, I tend to roll like shit even when I'm GMing. Honestly, it's really rough. I don't think I ever really like the GMs that are like, I almost total party killed the other night, man. Almost TPK. That's never gonna be me. Never gonna be me.
You and Adam from EPP need to have a long talk, because poor Adam. Poor Adam.
Like, it's okay because I typically have really fantastic players. I think I've only really the campaign that
There's
I did.
There's this 1K person.
No,
just
not at all. You are one of my favorite people to GM for, honestly. I've only done it 1 time. Well, 2 times technically.
2 and a bit.
And
1 and a bit.
2.5 times, because we also had a session 0 in there. Yeah, no, I love playing with you. I feel like the decisions that you make, I love a player who isn't trying to outfox, they just do. And I feel like I have, like with the cowboy game, I have a whole table of people outfoxing, accidentally outfoxing. But then there's moments that come up where like y'all are like, look at this outfoxing I just did. And in my mind, I'm like, thank you for doing that. I have something for that. I'm gonna write a note.
Oh yeah, every so often I'm like, there's a great big red button here, and I shouldn't push it, but I'm gonna. It's one of my favorite. I don't know how much either of you have watched Dimension 20, but they did a dark twisted fairy tale season, and Lou Reed played Pinocchio, and they were on the little island, Pinocchio's little island, with bubble gum and whiskey and cigarettes or cigars, and they found hot dogs. Right, Pinocchio's off by himself, and he smells hot dogs, and he walks over and he sees hot dogs underneath a box. And Brennan's like, roll me a perception check. And he nat 20s it. And Brennan's like, it's a box with a stick. You can see the string on the stick. And he's like, guess nothing bad can happen with it. And just wanted to push the button so much that he threw away a nat 20.
Yeah.
like, yeah, I've been there.
I mean, that's how you get good story. I feel like being too precious about your character, like, that's something that I've noticed a lot too. When I'm in games and I'm bored, it's usually because either a player or the GM has decided to be too precious. And for me, it's like, don't, right? Don't. Let's make a mess. Let me think my way out of this box I'm trapped in, right? Yeah. Put me in the box. I don't care, right? If I can't get out of the box, something cool is going to happen. If I get out of the box, something cool is going to happen. If I never even know about the box because you feel bad, nothing cool is going to happen.
Right.
Put me in there.
I've always felt very pressed by players that insist on having characters that have to be cool all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like, if your character has to be cool all the time, this is going to be extremely boring.
Yep.
I have done entire lectures on, I love playing edgelords. I love playing edgelords. I love playing edge ladies. I love playing edge monarchs. You can't do it like they do in the movie. You can't play Vampire Hunter D the way he is in the anime in a TTRPG. It's not going to work. Mm-hmm. But you know how you do it? Like they do that, like, you're all camping, I'll stand guard, goes around, behind the tree, and when no one's watching, I think they like me. Okay, you go.
Right.
That's how you play the edgelord.
Absolutely. I think that, like, that character development too, like, even if your edgelord begins as an edgelord and ends as one, having at least is there a lesson being learned here? No, there's no lesson being learned. Well, things are a little bit different. Like, that keeps me interested. That keeps me invested, And I think that character growth, honestly, is people compliment my character making skills a lot, and I'm like, the secret is character development. The secret is making a messy little freak that's slightly messier or less freakish when the story is over, right? One of those two things, or the inverse, right? Yeah. More freakish, less
There
messy.
is nothing more fun than a character who only changes for the worse.
Yes.
When you're like, are they going to learn? Oh, no, they're not, right? These moments, there was a teeny tiny growth, and now 3 steps back. And yes, Matt, there's nothing quite like knowing your character is a goofy goober and diving into that very uncool moment. Every time my disaster queer half-orc paladin of the flying spaghetti monster tried to flirt with a lady type,
ooh,
the dice said no. And you just had to lean it. Like, it just became a thing of, how is Roxy going to screw this up and how badly is she going to do it?
It was always some of the finest moments in that game is Roxy going, hey, she's really hot. I'm really, it was a disaster. It was such a disaster.
When a party member played by one of my best friends accidentally stole the eyes of the blacksmith Roxy was trying to romance while rolling the dice that I made for him. Mwah.
Yeah, it was so perfect. It was so perfect. And like cool characters where, like, I love, like, arrogant characters who think they're cool and then the dice just keep shitting on them. And so it's just pratfall after pratfall after, like, I love that. And what's great about those characters is that, like, during important moments, the dice tell a story. The dice will be like, you could have this one. And so, like, the character will be like, all right, I'm just going to run up the side of this wall and do, like, a front flip over it and then, like, land on the guard and no one is going to hear it. And everybody's like, every time you've tried to tie your shoe in the past, like, 6 weeks, it has gone poorly. Like, you still have scars from that. And then he goes up, does the flip, lands on the dude, and then, like, unlocks the gate and is just like, I'm always like this. And it's like, it's just like, there's such comedic timing from that.
Yes, absolutely. I feel that way about... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, but you have to be willing to have your cool character be not cool in order for those moments to happen.
Yes, absolutely.
Because if your cool character takes no risks.
That's what I'm saying. There's no point in your character being cool. You got to go do cool stuff to be cool. You can't just sit there and be like, I'm so cool. Okay, am I taking your word for it? What are you doing that's cool? saving the day would be cool, but you seem to not want to roll, so you're just standing there.
My work
right?
here is done. You didn't do anything. My work here is done.
Right.
Like I said. Yeah, I think that's very much who Belladonna is. Like, the dice have told such a story for her. So like the mechanic for the harmony when you eclipse is that you fall apart, right? And that can mean whatever you want. Like, some eclipses for a harmony might be like you lose your mind, or you have a fracture in your brain, or something like that. If your like harmoniness is like two sides of a hole inside your head. But for my character, she literally becomes two people. So I got to do two voices, and I have so the way that Belladonna looks is also kind of a composite of Donnie and Bella. So Bella has very like white, kind of translucent skin, big blue eyes, black features, and this shock of like white kinky hair that's like really long and flowy. And then Donnie has like a short like mohawk that's like a buzz cut kind of, and like tattoos all over, dark skin, beautiful dark eyes. So when they come together, Belladonna has half her hair is black, half their hair is white, in afro puffs, shaved sides, one blue eye, one brown eye. She has vitiligo. So like I specifically made this character in the same kind of tradition as Steven Universe. So when I eclipse, I turn into two people, right? They break apart. So like the moment in the story where I finally was able to do that, it was like the right time. Like, just before the eclipse, I had a moment where I had like my first 6 the entire game, and I was like, fucking yes. And like, I did something really cool. It was epic. I have a cool weapon that does whatever, that changes into whatever I want. It's like a light weapon. It was amazing, right? Everybody was like, yeah. It was like this cool moment, and then I fucked the next one, and just so badly, and I immediately crumbled into two people, and everybody was like, oh, what is this? And it was awesome to be able to kind of like have that moment with the group as well, because Belladonna is very chill. Like she's the best of both worlds. And when one personality takes over, she might appear to have brown eyes, or she might appear to have blue eyes. And that's how people know who they're talking to. If they're talking to the one being, if they're talking to one half or the other half. So like the holiday episode, when we switched playbooks, I switched to, I believe, the Outsider playbook.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I went complete opposite side, right? When I tell you I have never rolled better in my entire life. Like, if you listen to that episode, like, Belladonna leans into the Donnie-ness of it all, because Bella's like freaked out by the situation that's happening, and she kind of retreats inside and is just more of a voice in the back of Belladonna's mind instead of being more of an active participant. And Donnie has a real fucking terrible attitude. So she's just tooling around the city on her longboard and like throwing snowballs in people's faces and just cutting up, doing like sled racing on the back of the board, like down a giant hill, like really just a mess. And it was awesome to be able to play such a mess, knowing that I could eventually go back to the safety of who I usually am.
Yeah.
So like, I love when the dice tell a story. I am very passionate about moments like that. Especially when I'm playing a character that is very vulnerable. Lots of that in my Witches game. Adam's in the chat. He's the GM for that one. We're looking for a home for it for 2024. And my character, Already Flameheart, is like a beautiful red-haired Aasimar warlock, accidental warlock, who doesn't know what she's gotten herself into, and is basically a humanoid version of a Pomeranian that is in a very loud intersection. That's Already Flameheart.
Wow.
She just doesn't. She wants the best for all her friends and for everybody. She's trying to do her best. But gosh darn it, she is a mess. And shakes like a little leaf all the time. Isn't entirely sure of pretty much anything she says. And boy howdy, do her dice tell a story. It's just my favorite. Because like, I come up with this idea, and I know there's a story that I want to tell, and I know that there's something important that I want to do with this character, whether it's, you know, Matt, Mimics and Misfits in chat, Fate of the Ocean, Zora Bloodfang is there to make things uncomfortable and say what you're thinking out loud, right? That is what Zora does. That's her job. She comes in completely deadpan, completely straight face, not trying to crack a joke, and will make all of the jokes in the world, and probably start some fights as well. But I like it when that character has to fall flat on their face because the dice was like 5.
Not this time.
Yeah, but I'm gigantic. I'm a big, strong half-orc. What do you mean I can't open this wooden door? Oh, it's because everyone's watching, isn't it? Yep. Okay. Well, everyone's watching. Maybe if you guys wouldn't stare at me, I wouldn't feel so much pressure to succeed. Like, it just drives the story along in a way that, like, nothing else can. I feel like that's why this medium, like, I love improv and I love acting. I did theater for a long time, like through, grade school, a little bit into college, a little bit beyond that. And like, I really, really love acting. Like, it's something that helps me express myself and discover more about myself every time I embody a new character. But I feel like what really gives TTRPGs the edge is the fact that, like, you're in the driver's seat, but you can't control everything. And it's not about controlling everything. It's about what you do when something doesn't go in your favor or when something unexpectedly does. And I feel like thinking around that and the strategy behind that and the level of thoughtfulness you can bring to your character in those moments is really exceptional. Yep. Very passionate.
I'm going to use that to bridge something else, but I want to say really quickly, in our Girl by Moonlight game, our harmony was twins. And when they fell out, when they eclipsed, they just started fighting each other. So there had to be Kinley therapy.
We all
Kinley
could
got
benefit.
to play therapist.
Take a moment.
Kinley got to play therapist.
Aww.
I thought that we all got therapy about Kinley. That's what we all need. Yikes.
Kinley was therapist. And then in the season 1, one of the characters was an outsider who did not like Kinley. And Kinley was aware that they were not liked. And you can imagine how well that went.
Oh my God. Why don't you like me? What is it? I don't need you to like me. Please like me.
Why don't you like me? It's because I don't drink coffee. Let's be honest, the last thing I need is coffee. But part of the ability to tell a good story in a TTRPG, to roll with the punches and to like keep playing even when the dice are not going your way and the dice are punishing you. And why are we playing with digital dice? Let me roll my physical dice. They hate me a little bit less than these freaking digital dice.
Seriously.
Is being able to be at a table where you are safe and comfortable and supported. And being safe and comfortable at a table can mean a couple different things. And it can be radically different things for different people. So, Candace, I wanted to chat a little bit about, we didn't want to do the typical, like, hey, guess what? Yesterday was Martin Luther King Day, so let's talk about the Black experience. So I said, nah. Let's let me be the minority, and let's have 2 incredible, powerful Black people in this space come and talk about their experience in this space and what we as allies can do to just be a little bit more conscious and a little bit more helpful and learn to conduct ourselves better. Because sometimes someone can say a thing thinking they're helping or thinking they're putting out the right vibe, and they're not.
Yes, that happens more than I would like to admit. To me, not with me, unfortunately. I tend to think about what I'm going to say because so many people have said ridiculous things to me. So I take a little longer, I think, sometimes to just process before I open my face. Yeah, like I feel like in the last 5 to 6 years, maybe longer, let's say since 2016, there has been an uptick in non-melanated people trying to use the words of Martin Luther King to justify continuing to be awful. By arguing that they're not being awful, they're just, it's just the world. And you're the problem if you see racism everywhere. It's not that you're pointing out the reality because that doesn't exist. Even if that's your experience, you're the issue because you're seeing problems where none exist.
We've had a Black president. Racism is over.
We are post-racial, everyone. I don't know if you know. And then I get to their table or to a table with someone who has done a cursory amount of work, right? For me, there are some texts that I feel like are kind of the ground floor for activism and for just being aware of yourself and your place in this world. And Peggy McIntosh's White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack. To me, if you're trying to start this journey and you're trying to understand who you are, because before you can understand other people, you have to understand yourself, right? You, especially if you are white, who you are and what your place in this world means for other people, because your experiences are not going to be understood by people the same way, right? Someone comes to me and they're like, man, work was really hard today. For the first time in 6 years of working there, I felt unheard and unseen. And I was really disappointed by that. If you want to talk to me about that, I can listen. But if you would like me to hold you and to tell you everything's going to be okay, and that this is probably just a once in a while thing that you have to deal with, and I'm so sorry that happened to you, it's going to be a struggle for me, because that's just how every day is for me at most jobs, right? So understanding who you are, the space that you take up, the way the world sees you versus the way the world sees the players that are going to be at your table, right? Understanding that you can't say to a Black person or a Latin person that's running late that they're on CP time, right? Even though it seems like a really innocuous joke, or even saying while you're late, or making a joke about, oh, well, I know, you don't want to work too late because, you want to just, chill out and kick it and lay around, or like making insinuations that they're lazy, right? You might be able to do that with a white person and they'll just laugh it off and it'll be funny and you guys can have a grand old time. But for me, there are a bunch of layers that come with that, right? So before you can just assume that you can run a table and offer a safe space to people who are different than you, you have to first understand yourself and then try to understand those people. And a lot of people haven't done that first step. Right? They think they just need to go and understand other people, which, sure, that helps. But what happens is when something bad happens at your table or in your community, you don't know how you're going to react to it until you are brought to the fire, right? Fireside chat. Someone's like, hey, something racist happened to me in your community. It's someone you know. It was you. It's someone you don't really know. It was a table with a different GM I don't feel comfortable going to because they didn't notice it. Whatever it is. And if you don't understand your place in the world, you cannot counsel this other person. You're not going to be able to advocate for them in the way that you want to. It's next to impossible. And that, of course, also doubles for when you have someone that's trying to tell a nuanced story at the table as well, right? If I am trying to give you a story about, a tiefling who has Black features and kinky hair, right? Yes, that tiefling is red or whatever blue or whatever color, right? But that tiefling is Black, right? The tiefling's Black. If you have me chased by the town guards and put in manacles and locked in a prison, right? That's not going to be unlike reality, right? If you're going to put a half-orc or a drow in a game and you have Black players, asking them how they feel about that. You're gonna put a Yuan-ti in the game. You have Asian players. I play a Yuan-ti in What We Do in the Shallows, right? Which is a 5e horror game that runs on Matihi's channel. Really fun game, very queer. Like our Flag Means Death meets What We Do in the Shadows, honestly. It's really good.
So good.
And like before I came with Drea, who is a snake folk, right? She's a Yuan-ti. I asked. There was an Asian player that left the game that I assumed their position, right? I assumed their role, or their space at the table. And then there's another Asian player that still remains. And I didn't want to offend anybody. And granted, Yuan-ti is a nonsense made up word. D&D made it. It has nothing to do with anything, which is part of the reason
coded.
It's shitty. Right, but it's very coded, and it's snake people, which is also a slippery slope. Anything reptilian can stand for a bunch of different races. Same thing with kobolds, right? If you're going to have something like that in your game, you have to ask people. You need to say something to them, right? Hey, so I was thinking about this thing. What do you think about that? So that's what I did. I said, I really want to be a rogue. I want her to be a sea snake because I was thinking about nautical themes. I think it'd be really cool if she could change her lower half at will so she can walk around on land. Like, I think that's a cool idea. Piper was like, I think that's a great idea. Let me bring it to the crew. I was like, thank you. So they brought it to the crew, had a big conversation. Everybody signed off. Before I went to my GM, I did my due diligence. I did my research, right? I read, I looked things up. I researched everything. I made a Pinterest board. I saw the kind of characterizations that other people had put into the subject matter. I went to my Asian friend, Jen, and I said, hey, so I want to be a Yuan-ti. How do you feel about that? And Jen was like, well, first, why don't we do like is snake folk maybe? I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's do that. Let's divorce it from the first one, right? So through all of these steps, I got to a place where I was ready within a month to play this game. It wasn't just, this is what I'm doing, guys. Because like that sucks, right? I've walked into a game where somebody was telling a drow that she was one of the good ones. Like I walked into the game and that was what was happening. And I immediately was like, you know what? I have to go. I'm gonna leave. You know what I mean? Like that has happened to me because someone didn't think, they know it's racist. They know it's something that people are reclaiming, right? Same thing with Lovecraft, right? If someone's gonna ask me being Call of Cthulhu and they're a white person, I do expect you to say, I do not ascribe to any of the nonsense that man had. There will be none of that in my game. Here's a reasonable expectation of what you can know that you're walking into in my game. And if you have a problem, here are the safety tools right off the bat. Because like, I'm going to be playing a black character in your game. Like, well, not all black people do, but I am. So figure it out.
And even in the very fun, what was the sci-fi one that we played? Horizon
Signals.
Horizon Signals. My brain always goes to Horizon Zero Dawn. And I'm like, that's not brain.
Same.
That autocorrect.
My brain did that
Stop
too.
When you type into Google and it like automatically fills, I'm like, stop that. Yes. I don't want that. I wanted to play a monster who didn't speak the common. And so I could be nonverbal, like, I just wanted to make monster sounds. I'm not going to lie. I was like, I think it would be really funny if this character's name was like SARAH, all caps with a question mark at the end. And they say their name different every time. And no one is quite sure what this creature's name is. And I'm sitting in front of a whole group of people going, is that going to offend? Because I'm sitting in front of a bunch of diverse faces who's in their background and probably in their immediate families, people can't say their name right. And the immediate reply from one person was like, being able to keep asking a white person, I'm sorry, how do you say your name, will be such therapy for me. And I'm like, great, cool. So long as that is how we feel, because if you're not comfortable with it, I'm not doing it. Because to me, it can be a joke and it might not be able to be a joke to you.
Absolutely. And I think giving space and respect for that matters, but you can't respect something like even empathy, right? People are like, oh, but what about empathy? I can empathize. You cannot empathize because empathy is, I don't know that. Like I can empathize with you. I know what you're going through. I understand you, but I can't sympathize. Sympathize is me too, friend, right? You, me, same. That's sympathy. And then empathy is, fuck, that sucks. That's never happened to me. I understand what's going on with you. I'm sorry, right? You cannot empathize with something you don't understand. And even if you know on the surface, Black in America equals bad for lots of people, Black people disenfranchised, have a hard time, police not great, world sucks, right? Even if you have the broad strokes, without recognizing all the little things that go along with that, and the fact that you are a white person, and you might not feel the same way that someone else does, and that might cause you to create a sympathetic character that is unsympathetic for someone else. Even that matters. So I feel like there's a lot of nuance that goes into TTRPGs, and like you see it all the time, right? You see these grognards like, who needs safety tools? Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, it doesn't matter. And like I recognize that. My home game is run by Carl Kiesler. He actually is the person who got me into TTRPG. Meeting him changed my life, overwhelmingly so. And he never used formal safety tools. We started playing 7 years ago at this point, 8 years ago at this point. And it just never came up, right? Is that to say that we had none? No, because Carl is really easy to talk to. And if there's something happening in a scene that's fucked up and you go, hey, this is freaking me out a little bit, or if he looks at your face and sees a wince or sees confusion, he'll stop the game and ask, are you okay? Is this not good? Before a scene comes up. I was playing a busty cheerleader that was empty-brained, right? Just a real cute bimbo. Who just didn't know a goddamn thing and loved to party hard. And before someone would approach me to check me out, he'd be like, you kind of see someone lingering. The look on their face, not gonna make you roll for it, appears to be romantically or, physically interested in you. Like, I didn't have to roll any kind of check, right? just there's a person, they're standing there, they're looking at you in a sexual way. Okay, cool. I turn around and I lean over to pick something up and I give a nice full view with my Daisy Dukes. Then I set the tone, right? Then it's on me. Or I can say, I grab my jacket and put it around my waist. It allows your player to do what they want. And rather than you just kind of assuming that you get it, because he doesn't know what it's like to be a lady. He knows that there's right and wrong. He knows there's an okay way and a non-okay way. But he doesn't know, like, the minutia, right? And just because you don't know that part doesn't mean you can't make space for your players to be able to come to you with it. So, like, Martin Luther King Day for me, it's always been a day where I meditate on the state of things. I think about my ancestors. I think about where we came from, where we are now. I think about the work that's left that needs to be done. It's not a holiday that I've ever taken and just like done nothing with. My mom from a very young age was like, you're going to do a book report about a Black person of your choice. And I would work and I would have homeschool on the day instead of regular school. And it was fun. I mean, I love to read, so I'm a dork. I was good with extra homework, extra credit with my mother. But like, I think a lot of people take it off and they don't think about why they're getting it off. They don't think about how much that man sacrificed outside of just his life. He was not a perfect person. But like a lot of people quote MLK without recognizing that toward the end of his life, especially, he had started to scooch on over from the center into radicalism, right? Not all the way, not like Malcolm X radical, but those two men started to drift closer and closer and closer to similar ideologies. Because after a certain point in time, you can't just shut the fuck up anymore. And I feel like that's something that I've seen actively in this space. I've had to leave multiple spaces because of bad experiences. 2 have been profound. The first one was very quiet. I didn't want to make waves. The second one, I was like, everyone needs to know because this can't happen to someone else, right? Every time it happens to me, the fewer fucks I have about how I look and what it's going to mean to me versus how it's going to help somebody else. Because I know if it's happening to me and I'm this tolerant and I'm this understanding and I'm this open and I have no problem talking about these things, what is it like for the quiet Black person? This is their second game. They're either just going to leave and never return, or they're going to stay and think that this is okay. And neither of those are good.
And
so
I know that you have to feel this even more profoundly than I do. I have an understanding that, like, if I go into a space, if I am on a game, if I am on a channel, like, my being there is kind of a promotion that this is a safe space, that this is a place that people who are like me, who look like me, can come and hang out and be safe and respected. And especially when it took a while for you to realize that that's not the case. You're like, ooh, but I've been promoting this
for a minute. And that's what I'm saying too about the person who runs the channel, right? Whether it's your game or someone else's game, if you are in charge of that channel and you are setting the tone for that channel, right? It's not just about you and your reputation, right? It's about the reputation of the people who allow you to promote yourself through their talent and through their skills. Because especially in this industry where most of the time you're not getting paid, right? Most of the time you're not seeing any kind of recompense for this. You watch Real Housewives of Beverly Hills and you're like, damn, how can people show ass like that? And it's like, oh, one answer, millions and millions of dollars, right? Would I slap a woman in the mouth if I were making millions of dollars? Probably at this point in my life, yeah, I think I would. I would probably slap the bitch real hard and not be sorry about it and throw champagne in a man's face and walk out of the room, right? All of that is because the people that are doing it know that they're getting paid, right? They are fulfilling a role in entertainment. It's all with their consent, right? Signing the paycheck is their consent. And they have enough money for lawyers if things get hinky. But in the TTRPG community, we're all just friends playing games, right? We're all just buddies rolling dice. But that's not real, right? That's not real. You are running a business. You know, you will see some money.
Any company that says we're just family, run away. I don't care.
Yeah, fuck that. Care. No.
Also, like, thank you, Rosalind Red, for the gift subscription.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel like in those situations, I never mind playing for free because I have a platform. Everything that y'all do with setting things up, sending out the Zoom, paying for the Zoom subscription, time editing, time trying to recruit people, doing promotions, Then on top of that, the payments that you have to make to like store all your stuff on Google Drives, right? Like it costs time and money to make a channel, right? And the best way for me to show appreciation as a player is by showing up and doing my fucking best so that both of us can rise together, right? That's what I want. When I sign up for a game, that's what I want. I want you to do well and I want me to do well. And together we will make some scratch. And if you get paid before me, you did more work, right? Get it. I don't care, right? Like, please take the money. So it doesn't even really come down to that. But not only are you trading in like time and talent, but you're also trading in trust. And regardless of what color you are, regardless of whether or not you're marginalized, you could be the most cis, the most white, the straightest man in the world. You're still being vulnerable at the table when you tell a story. Mm-hmm. If you're putting even an ounce of who you are into your character, you're being vulnerable at the table. And there's absolutely a right and a wrong way that somebody can identify with you. I had a player one time, he's a man, cis, his partner was playing with us, right? His girlfriend was playing with us. And he had a dad character. He was playing a kid, like a teenager, and his dad had a drinking problem. We never had a conversation about how much of him was in this game. I didn't have to, because getting away from his dad and skirting the rules of the house was all he wanted to do. And I feel like there's a lot that you can tell about your players if you watch them and you see the patterns that they make with their characters and the choices that they make with their characters, especially ones that you don't see coming. It tells you a lot about who they are and how they view their role. And there was a day when I was like, you know what? Everybody forgot to call their parents. Y'all have been out at the beach exploring from 12 o'clock this afternoon. It's now 2 a.m. No one's seen you. No one's heard from you. It's the 80s. You have no cell phone. Guess what? You get back to school. All your parents are there. He was like, wait, my dad's not there. I'm like, your dad is there, and he's sober. What? Woof. Yeah. Woof. He's got bags under his eyes. He looks like he's been crying. Oh my God, seriously? Yeah. Okay, well, I guess I'm in trouble. So everybody has their scene driving home. And like, I knew whose parents would be mad and whose parents wouldn't. His dad wasn't mad. He was scared. He was worried. And for the rest of our campaign, did not drink. Started going to meetings. Checked in with his son. Asked about his day. Right? Like, there was a change in that NPC that player really fucking needed. And I don't think he was ever going to say anything about it. But like, is that an experience I get? No, I've never had an alcoholic parent. I've never had to deal with that in my life. But I can see when someone needs something, and I can take it upon myself to do the research to know how to meet them halfway in the game and to make this game valuable, because they're bringing something to it that I can appreciate, even if I can't necessarily understand it, like as a person. So I think that there's like a focus that people miss on that sometimes, and it makes for a very awkward gaming experience when you're trying to like be naked and someone just railroads you or takes away your agency or doesn't recognize that they're not picking up what you're putting down, and they're purposely now putting you in situations to force their side of the story instead of uncovering what you need.
And also, I'm going to throw out too, there is a certain amount of, as a player, sometimes it is good to talk about, I have built up this character to explore blank. I am interested in, because I will specifically call out Adam here, because Adam did such a great job. We were decently into my first season of the Emergency Power podcast with Soul, and Soul very much is a story of found family on multiple levels. Good, bad, everything in between, loved and lost. And I realized, like, decently into the campaign, I'm like, hey, I just realized a thing might happen next episode. And like, Soul's story is found family. I'm actually not interested in exploring anything to do with biological family, right? Like, and for a lot of people, their immediate thought is like, oh, well, this character should find. And I'm like, I didn't verb this before, and if you've already written a bunch of stuff and it can't be changed, that's fine, that's on me. But just so you know, this is not a thing I am hunting for. And making sure, you know, because again, a good GM is trying to pick up what you put down, and all of our experiences are colored by our own pasts. Like, the decisions we make are colored by the things we understand. So be it, you know, for me, I have very strong boundaries in a game of, please don't make me pet the dog, because I've had very traumatic experiences around dogs, and people always kind of laugh about it. They're like, what, you'll fight the dog but you won't pet it? I'm like,
Yeah.
Yes. That is exactly what I'm saying. And they'll like look at me like, and they'll get the really awkward laugh like, am I playing with the serial killer? And I'm like, I've been hospitalized because of dog attacks. And they're like, oh, now it all makes sense. So,
But you shouldn't have to say that.
But
you shouldn't
have to say that. Again, we live in a world where it's all like, you don't like kids and you don't like dogs. You must. So
I don't judge. You like cats. That's enough for me.
Anyone who doesn't understand why people don't like kids has not spent enough time around kids.
Agreed.
Every person, like every parent I know, like every responsible parent I know, I should say, like I could pull them to the side and I'd be like, them little shit bags, and they're like, God damn it, them little shit bags. And that doesn't mean they don't love their kids. That doesn't mean they don't love other kids, but they get it.
Yes.
Because because a parent has stood in a kitchen with a kid holding a cup and being like, hold it with 2 hands. Please hold it with 2 hands. 2 hands, hold it with 2 hands. And then the cup just clatters to the floor and whatever's in it, milk, juice, and it's always something that's like hard to clean up. So it's like juice. It's be sugar everywhere. And it clatters to the floor, and then they have to not punch that kid through a wall.
My absolute favorite was there was some comedian who was like, all my friends with kids would be like, oh, you got to have kids. It's the best experience. It's so great. You got to have kids. And then the moment his girlfriend announced she was pregnant, they're like, ha ha, ha ha, you're never going to sleep again. Ha ha, sucks to be you. Ha ha.
Yes. Because people aren't comfortable admitting how they feel about stuff.
Yes.
Which I feel like plays into how you do your TTRPG tables as well. Because if you're not comfortable admitting that there are certain things deep inside you, right? Deep in the bowels of your soul that you tucked there years ago and you hid, right? You live in LA now, but before you were living in an all-white town in Wisconsin, but you couldn't possibly have any undiagnosed or unrecognized racism anywhere in your body without doing even a little bit of work, right? You couldn't have any weird POVs about how like certain people should be treated, or that's not going to get weird and bite you in the ass. You get it. Like, you got to do that work on yourself to like figure your shit out before you can be like, let me understand people.
So because of Martin Luther King Day, because of Candace's comments about people misquoting King, and because of the whitewashing of the civil rights movement, there are 3 things that I want to bring up. One, a certain contingent of media and politics want to talk about nonviolent protests. They want to instruct people on how they can express their frustration with their government and the systems in power. Everyone ignores the damage that Martin Luther King's protests, nonviolent protests, did. Because they were nonviolent in that they weren't actively hurting people, but clogging up the stores, clogging up the streets, clogging up the bridges, did, in today's money, hundreds of millions of dollars of damage, of economic damage in Georgia, in Mississippi, in Alabama, in Louisiana. And the other thing that people just ignore and hand wave away is that when Martin Luther King was assassinated, 26 cities in the United States immediately caught fire and burned for between 3 days and a week. The civil rights movement was doing this economic damage, and they were saying very overtly, this is us taking the easy way. This is us taking the way that's like more agreeable. This is the warning. And then when they killed the leader of that part of the movement, because Martin Luther King was not the only, and like even making a Martin Luther King Day is part of the whitewashing, because they want you to not look at other people. Correct. But when those cities caught fire and burned and raged, and the losses to to property and to economics was crippling. So crippling that the entire U.S. government were like, well, we should probably pass this law so these people will stop. And then anybody who knows me knows that I will get on my horse about racism. But part of my beef is that I have to do the work for other people. So I will tell you two things. Go look up what Martin Luther King had to say about the white moderate. Go look up what Martin Luther King had to say about a negative piece. Go Google it. Type negative piece and white moderate in and see what his prime. We remember high school primary sources. See what the man had to say about just those two things. And you will gain a great deal of understanding about all of the people who weaponized Martin Luther King's words and how he felt about them and how he predicted how he observed how things were and how in a very real way a lot of those things have not changed.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to racism in the TTRPG space, when it comes to just like being black on the internet or black in public or black in a dark room by yourself, one thing that I need to impress upon people and what people don't realize is that racism is like patriarchy in that there are multiple versions of it. Racism is institutional first and foremost. The person standing on the street corner calling me a slur, I do not care about that person. But from before the United States was founded, and around the world, especially in Europe, every aspect of civilization, every aspect of government has been built on the foundation of racism against the black people in the United States. And whether it is the formation of the Senate versus the House, whether it is our judicial system, how cops are, laws about housing, zoning laws, education, like healthcare. The reason you don't have universal healthcare, the reason we don't have universal healthcare in this country is literally because they were like, oh, but black people will get it. In 1938, they're like, listen, we got to do something about this Great Depression. Why don't we give everybody health care? And they're like, we have to call them citizens now, and we really don't want to give them stuff. Like we can't be giving them stuff. Like the fact that teeth are like optional bonus health care. Like all of these things are all like labor laws, tipping. I see debates on tipping all the time. They're like, well, why do I have to tip? But racism. And so if you, as not even a white person, but like if you are a person and you see or hear someone says to you, hey, this thing is racist and makes me uncomfortable, you have to understand that the person saying that, whether knowing or unknowing, has had to accept and process the status quo of racism structurally and racism in their culture. And on top of that, the individual racism that they experience. And then they had an experience in a place that they want to occupy, and then they have to overcome all of that, plus the what if this person reacts badly to me saying something about racism, and then say something to you about it, and then they formulate it in a way that they think you will accept it best, because they're trying to caretake your feelings about them being hurt. And it's the same thing about like patriarchy. Like, tell me the founding fathers thought of women as equals. Look at the rules about property ownership and voting and admission to schools and all the, like, there are just as many, if not more, stories of like the laws and cultural mores being built to be weaponized against women as they are about black people. And if you're a black woman in this country, zoinks.
And if you're a black trans woman,
please.
And so, you know, when you like would you have all your adventurers meet in the tavern at the beginning of your adventure, which 99% of people have experienced, and a barmaid comes over? Like, that is an installation of patriarchy. And on some level, again, whether conscious or unconscious, we all, but like women specifically, like look at that and then they have to decide if that's going to be bothersome or not. And so there are a lot of like very tiny things that women and people of color like accept as status quo and don't make a big deal about, because it would mean turning our entire culture on its head. And ain't nobody got time for that.
Done.
Right.
You'd never get anything done.
If I only played video games. I
feel the same way about mental health, right? Like, mental health in minority communities is very different, right? The approach is different. The understanding is different. It's hard to, because therapy is like being a psychotherapist or being a counselor or being a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Any of that takes a lot of money and a lot of school, right? Which we don't have free education for the same reason we don't have universal healthcare. And because of that, there are fewer black therapists to choose from. So if you're going to go, you have to do that whole game where you have to figure out whether or not this person is woke enough so that when you tell them about the microaggressions you're experiencing at work, they can go, that's fucked up, and validate you. Or you're going to find somebody that's going to go, are you sure that's what it was? Which is exactly what you're going to get in HR as well, right? You're going to get, are you sure? How do you know? Are you positive? Can you tell me one more? How did it happen? What? So I feel like with mental health, it's very much the same, right? Day to day, am I a little depressed when I have a job and everything is otherwise fine? I've got a great partner. I drive a nice car. I live in a good place. I got a roof over my head. Things are good, right? I have a job that I more or less think I can keep. Why are you still upset? Why is it still a bad day? Because when I go in, people watch me all day. From the time I get there, they have something to say about whether or not I'm early and how surprising that is. If I'm on time, how good that is. If I'm late, how not surprising that is. And please don't be late again, even though you were here until 11 o'clock last night. Then you get to your desk. People want to talk to you about what you're eating, why you're eating it, what made you think that was okay to bring to work. Oh, you're so brave eating that because plus size. You're so brave to have a donut first thing in the morning. Wow. Then they're going to watch you work. They're going to take a look at what you're doing, how long it takes you to do things, whether or not you open a frame of a website that is for work. If you're on it, because it's your job to do social media, in my case, are you on Facebook because you're posting something for yourself or for the company, right? Are you actually slacking off? How long was your lunch break? I watched you walk out of here at 12:04. It's now 1:10. And that's really unacceptable. All day long.
Every day.
And then finally at 6 o'clock, when everybody leaves, I can do my work because nobody's talking to me and nobody's sneaking up on me and nobody's putting me into meetings with people just because they don't fucking want to go. And Candace will do it and get their work done. And then I'm there until 11. And the next day, the whole thing starts again, right? So even though things are good, they're still not good, right? But if I complained about that every day, about how hard work was every day, about how I had all these roadblocks every day, right? Who's going to listen to that? Who's going to listen to that every single day, right? That's just life being black at work. So it's like, I could not agree more with that sentiment, David, because it's just like, when would we find the time to handle the actual problems, right? There are real problems that I need to handle. I can't go around talking about this all the time. That doesn't mean it doesn't affect me. It doesn't mean it's not important. It doesn't mean that when I show up to your game and I've had a day where the day of the drow, right? I had just come from my colleague who was working with me as a designer, rewriting all of my copy because she didn't think that it was on brand. She's a designer. She doesn't write anything. She does not have a degree in English. She does not have a master's degree in library science. She doesn't have shit. right? She's got an associate's in art. And she rewrote my copy unapologetically, and nobody yelled at her. She did not get disciplined. Everybody just wanted to know, well, why was she in a position to rewrite your copy? I don't know. Here's the original. Oh, this doesn't seem weird. Oh, that's weird. I don't know why she would do that.
So I bring up all this and like, you know, it's this big like meta all-encompassing thing about the whole lived. I bring all of that up for TTRPGs to make the point of this. If that's because David, there we go. That should, oh wow, they were really big. Ooh, whoops. That was me. I pressed the chat thing in Zoom and it threw everything off. But if someone comes to you and says, this makes me uncomfortable, like man, woman, non-binary, trans, black, just for whatever reason, that discussion with you is the start of a marathon, 26.2 miles. And what you have to understand is that you are at the beginning of that race and they've already ran 100 miles. And so, if nothing else, take their concerns seriously. Don't question them about like how they're feeling, because you don't have the perspective that they do on their issue. And always listen and tell them that you're listening, and then ask how you can help, how you can fix it. That's it. And like there are lots of like both in discussions that Kay and I have had on the talk show and like behind closed doors, people have asked me, like, they're like, listen, I'm white, I'm from Montana, like what do I do? And it's like the first and most important step is let the people who are affected by the problems take the lead. The perfect example, abortion in the United States. I am not equipped to get an abortion. And for a long time, I had the perspective of, listen, I can't have an abortion. This is a medical decision I can never have. So let's let the people who these rules apply to, let them make the decisions. Listen to them. And that is correct. There's like a whole like team of gynecologists who go around talking to people in positions of power about abortion, be like, here's what you need to know, here's how you could be informed, and then they get ignored. But the mistake I made is acting like it is just for them to like you know, obviously I've always like been supportive, but I've always said I shouldn't make too much noise about this because there are other voices that need to be heard. And there's a very slippery slope between me advocating for women and people who have uteruses about abortion and then like making it about me. But the truth of especially the United States is nothing happens unless the uninterested white moderate does something about it. There is there's like, you look at election results every year and it's always 30% of people voted one way, 30% of people voted the other way, and 40% of people didn't vote. And the reality is it's those 40% of people that make the decisions, that make things happen. And so like the civil rights movement doesn't happen until that 40% is made uncomfortable. Like women's suffrage doesn't happen unless that 40% are made uncomfortable and like get on board. So recognize when you are a part of that 40% and get on board on a personal level, on a political level. Like the smallest scale is I want to help. I want to listen. Don't exhaust yourself doing this, but tell me how I can be better at being on board.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to real quick from Live Space, Nicktude says that they love your eye makeup, Candace, and that they are an Indigenous person and feel everything you said with their entire self.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope you're having a wonderful day.
Hey, Leslie, welcome on in. Also, like, if fellow white people, if someone comes to you and says something made me uncomfortable, and look, this can be about race, it can be about sexism, it can be about any kind of phobia, it can be about whatever, right? If someone comes to you with that, that is a sign of trust. It is a sign that they believe that you will listen and that you will help. It takes more courage and more effort for someone to come to you and say, there is a thing that happened, either you did or in your presence or in a space you control, that was a problem for me. It takes more courage than it does for them to be quiet. I know I have seen so many incredible performers of different colors, of different sexual orientations, just shut down, be quiet, fade away, deliver their lines when it's time, and not bring their whole self because it was safer. So if someone brings this to you, it is hard. During Black Lives Matter, when all that started, I worked for a company that went, maybe since we are a majority white company that benefits greatly off of Black culture, we should have some like learning things, and had these calls where, you know, with a therapist mediator person where we could have small group discussions. And this must have been 50-plus-year-old white dude, white haired, nicely dressed, collared shirt, tie, you know, all that. He's like, I have learned over the past few weeks that I'm a person of privilege, that I come from a place of privilege. And I thought I'd worked real hard my whole life, but I am figuring out. And it's like, congratulations and welcome. Hello, Huntsman Hydra and Ashenworks. Thank you for the follow.
I think too, to piggyback off of what you're saying, like that listening part, being open to being told that you don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
I have had so many experiences in my life where a well-meaning white person is like, but I've done the work. I'm nice to my Black friends. I've had lots of them. They never really came to me about anything. We never talked about race or anything like that. This is such a widespread issue because they can't go, oh, I didn't care, right? It didn't affect me. I was ambivalent about it. If something racist happened in front of me, I'd be like, hey, but that was the extent of it. And therefore, my friends did not feel comfortable talking to me about race. Right? What you're saying, Kay, is so important. When a person of color comes to you and is like, hi, this is something that's terrible, just like what David was saying, there's a whole process behind the scenes that we have gone through before getting to you. It is not 5 seconds after something happened, I go, hey, something racist happened, unless I know you like that. There have been times where Kay is like, hey, correct me if I'm wrong. I love Kay. I have no problem telling Kay exactly what's on my mind. I still take a couple of minutes because I want to make sure that I say it in a way that isn't going to make me feel like, it's going to make my friend feel like I'm angry about it, because I'm not, right? They asked, I'm giving them information. Even if there's a friend of mine that hasn't asked, if I care enough about you, I don't want, you can't be my white friend going out there saying that shit to other Black people. And they come to me and they're like, your friend said some shit out their neck, and why did you let that happen? Right? Like, because people will hold other people of color accountable for their white people, right? That is absolutely a thing that happens.
110%.
Right? You have an all-white table on a channel that I'm on a lot. You're not going to be asked why you have all-white tables, but I will.
Yep.
People will ask me why most of the tables that I'm not at are all white. Sure. Right? So, like, be open to hearing that. It's not easy to hear in your life that all the problems that you have that are really serious and really deep-seated and are horrible, right? The things you've struggled with. It is not easy to find out, oh, but you could be Black. Right? To just deepen that level of how miserable your life is. Which isn't to say I'm miserable being black. I love being black. I love who I am. I love my culture. I love making wonderful, blazing new trails for my people. I love examining the history and where I come from, right? Like, I love who I am. I have absolutely no regrets. Wouldn't change it for the world. That doesn't mean that there aren't kind of shitty things that go along with that, right? And understanding that as a person on the opposite side of it, right? Getting that as hard as things may be for you, the world makes sure that other people have a harder time just because of how they look. That's something that's very powerful, even in just coming out of your blues yourself. I have plenty of white friends, including my nesting partner, has said, you know what, when I'm having a really bad day, thinking about how I could have not gotten the job because I'm black really helps me calm the fuck down about what a bad day I had at the job that I know I'm not getting fired from, right? Like, it gives you a sense of perspective. You're not celebrating that you have this privilege, but you're at least aware of it. So you're not going to go to your black friend and say things like what I said. Oh, you know, my day was so bad because this one time nobody listened to me. You're never going to say that. You're not going to make that mistake because you know better. And even if you still need to vent, you'll say to your, like, I cannot tell you how many times a white friend has come to me and been like, listen, this is bullshit. But also, can I talk to you about this problem that I'm having?
Yeah,
it helps me know what I'm about to get. It helps me soften. Yeah. Right. That's what I'm saying. It's not the struggle Olympics. It's just an awareness of who you are and where you fit in the grand scheme of things. Because along with that, well, I've done the work, also comes powerlessness, right? Thinking you've done the work and you've come so far and nothing's really changing. That leads to 40% of people not voting, right? That leads to, well, I can't change the world. Being educated about other people teaches you about abolitionists and how many of them were white because that's who we needed to be free, right? As many black people could stand up in a room and be like, hey, can we have an Emancipation Proclamation, please? No, you need white people to come in there. Women, oh, I really want to vote. Gosh, wish I could vote. You know, I can't vote on anything, so I can't hold a vote to see if I can vote. A white dude has to be like, you know who should vote? Women. You always need a man on the inside. And there are a lot of white people out there who shut you down too. Like, they'll say, that's not your problem. What do you know about it?
And that's why I always say we need men to stand up and talk about, we need more women at the tables. We need straight white men. We need you to run games and to cast tables with people who look like me and people who look like Candace and people who look like David. Because let's be honest, we all know this. If there is a table of all people of color, most white people are going to look at that and go, not for me.
Yep.
Just because we need tables that are diverse and that are led and brought forth by the straight white dudes who can say, look, you know, I'm the person you're used to seeing here. These are the people that I can and want to play with. We need you to do that. We cannot do these things ourselves. So thank you for being allies and thank you for being awesome. And the work never ends. Correct, Rex.
To piggyback on that, dear white people, you are not the enemy. And
correct.
Like, I don't know. I have not met a black person who's like, oh man, I want white people to feel guilty. You know what 100% of the black people I know, what they feel, what they've told me is we want white people to help fix it. Like, you see your fellow person unjustly oppressed. Again, black, woman, LGBTQ, trans, like there's a ton of oppression going around. And I'm glad Nikitude came in and was like, hey, I'm indigenous, because we don't talk, like, every time somebody's like, oh man, black people should just pull themselves up by the bootstraps, I'm like, y'all don't say that about the Native Americans. Y'all really don't. And guess what? Y'all shuffled them away into concentration camps before Germany ever shuffled anybody into a concentration. They got the idea from us. The concept of concentration camps came from an American.
Yep.
But like, you're not the enemy. Like, we don't want you to feel white guilt. We don't want you to prostrate yourselves and flag yourself on the ground and be like, we don't want you to feel personally attacked by racism. We know how that feels, and it doesn't feel good. We want you to be angry about it. We want you to be angry that it exists. And as I've said on multiple times on this channel, it's like white dudes, get in here. We are not in the business of excluding you. Like, white people, you are not excluded by black people. We are wary of you because we gotta be. Because I've got family that went to prison for talking to a white person. And that doesn't go away in a generation. Because yes, when I say I have family, we're talking about mothers and fathers and aunts and uncles. This wasn't that long ago. My dad was was out of school and out of the military when integration happened. My dad. This isn't
color photos of Martin Luther King Jr. They just want you to see the black and white ones, so you think it's a long time ago.
When disco was around, there was an entire state and an entire religion that didn't see us as people.
I found out Dayton, Ohio wasn't integrated, even with the laws, until the early 80s.
Yeah.
The 80s.
Mississippi was the last state to abolish slavery. That happened in the 90s.
People don't recognize how fresh those wounds are and how hard it is to avoid them, especially because I come from a family where my mom was an orphan, right? She was in foster care her whole life. She did the best that she could to, help raise herself and her siblings. It wasn't a good situation. She is one of the strongest, most resilient people that I know, right? And then my dad came from a light-skinned family. My mom is a darker-skinned woman. My grandmother could have passed as white. My grandfather was around my complexion, maybe a little bit browner than me. Everyone in both of their families knew how to read and write by the time they went to elementary school. Education was number one for them, right? They were very strict about the way that they raised their children. And that unfortunately became a problem with colorism with my mom and the lack of education that she had because she was a ward of the state, right? Which is not her fault. But that kind of judgment and that kind of classism and that kind of colorism, right? That's all a product of racism and slavery in this country, right? Of, well, I'm more prized because I'm fairer skinned. And you see it all the time. It's like this unconscious bias, right? Why aren't people making love letters to Lupita Nyong'o, who is arguably one of the most beautiful women in the world, right?
Yeah.
That woman is resplendent. The sun shines out of her pores, right? She is gorgeous. I look at Halle Berry and I see a mouse. She's cute. She's cuddly, right? She's okay. But white America will tell you that's the most beautiful black woman in the world. Why? Because she's light-skinned. She's half white. You can tell. She has very
and she's had the nose
features.
job.
She had the nose job, right? So there's that's something that happens today all the time, right? If I'm in a room where a bunch of black people are speaking about racism and I'm the lightest skinned person, I shut the fuck up. I don't have anything to say, right? Does that mean I don't experience racism? No, I absolutely do. I experience racism very differently than a dark-skinned femme, right? I experience racism very differently than an uneducated person of color, right? There's a lot of privilege that's packed into my existence despite the fact that I'm not white. We all have privileges. It's understanding those privileges and how they color the world around you and how you view people and situations around you, the way you act and the way the things you are affected by. That's what matters. And taking racism personally as a white person is honestly the best thing that you can do. I'm going to tell you this right now. When I watch Lil Wayne, right, do pretty much anything, I go like this.
Yep.
It's not a great moment for me as a black person, right? People of color, you can ask any of your POC friends, almost every single one of them is going to tell you, oh yeah, this Indian person showed ass this one time and it was embarrassed. All my Asian friends right now are talking about Joe Coy.
Yep.
Are they the same kind of Asian as him? No. Have they collectively said, nah, hard pass? Yes. No Asian people right now are like, applause, sir, because we're both Asian. That's not how that works. We are harsh critics of our own people. So if you are white, you can do that too.
Yeah,
and it's even more impactful when you do.
and that's part of like racism as like a culture, is because the number of questions I've gotten about Kanye West, and guess what?
How do you feel about that?
The smack.
Every time some white person gets out of these, it's never, oh, look at what this white person did. White people have the privilege of being individuals.
Yes.
Like when Britney Spears was having a breakdown, and a lot of bad things have happened to Britney Spears, which is a whole different like conversation. But when Britney Spears was having a very public breakdown, it did not speak for all white people.
Correct.
But Kanye.
Yeah.
And
now we're all anti-Semites.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it extrapolates to every single public-facing figure.
Yep.
And to circle back to, it's not just like cultural racism, it is institutional racism, and just like cultural racism hasn't gone away, institutional racism hasn't gone away. 2 years ago, Wells Fargo got fined millions of dollars for specifically disenfranchising over 500,000 Black and Mexican people. 2 years before that, they got fined for cooking up fake accounts, and the majority of those accounts were targeted at Black and Hispanic communities. 2 days ago, was it Georgia or Mississippi? I think it was Mississippi. But they passed a law that said that the people in the city, which is majority Black, can't elect their own judges when every other city and county in the state can. They're like, no, the state is going to appoint these two white men when it's 74% Black people. Like, and then late last year, there was the town in Mississippi that decided that the rightfully elected Black mayor wasn't allowed to be mayor, and that the white dynasty that had been mayor of, again, a majority Black community for the previous 70-something years would just continue on. The institutions that govern all of us, the institutions that corporations throw money at, hand over fist, continue to purposefully perpetuate these things against Blacks, against Mexicans, against LGBTQ people, against women. The government's doing this. The government's doing this to us.
I'm going to circle back really quick and say, point of when someone says something and it is suddenly a reflection of the entire Black white folks. If one of us does something crappy, if you see a fellow white person being crappy, call them out. You can do it in private. Just keep your own in line. If we don't, again, you need people on the inside. If we don't make it not comfortable, not okay, not right for white people to be racist in front of other white people, then it's really much more difficult for them to be racist. Absolutely. I would love to continue this conversation for another 2 hours, but we have to cut this short. So before we go, Candace, tell us again who you are and where we can find you, because you're up to a ton of really cool stuff and people should go follow you more.
Thank you. My name is Candace. You can find me at the Candace Marie on Blue Sky and Twitter, at Candace Magnificent everywhere else. I'm really trying to be better about posting stuff in a timely fashion. We'll see if 2024 gets the best of me, or if I can finally just kill all of the birds with all of the stones. You can hear more of me on Bloom and Blight, which is a Dareful Archives podcast, Girl by Moonlight. That comes out, I think, weekly episodes. And then on Wednesdays, so tomorrow you'll have a fresh episode of Otherworld Hollywood, which is a 12-sided stories production. That one is really close to my heart. You want to kind of circle back to white allyship and people giving a shit and understanding where you come from and listening. Wes Otis is the GM over there, and the conversation that we got to have, it's a 50s set, kind of old Hollywood, kind of glamour sort of idea. We have two 2 Black actors, myself included, 2 Latin actors, 1 white performer, and then a white GM, and are also majority LGBTQ. And when we started the conversation about how we were going to do things, the first question Wes asked was, listen, we've got a diverse group of people here that I'm telling a story for. What do you want to see? I'm not going to tell you, oh, racism isn't a thing. I want to know what you would like. I'm not going to tell you that you guys are majority queer. I'm not going to tell you, oh, there's no such thing as, as gay panic, right? As homophobia. Like, you're going to tell me what you want to see and how we want to implement this. And we chose as a team to say, you know what, let's not talk about racism. Let's be post racism, right? Not post racism as though like we've come out of it, but let's not even address it. Like, can we just move past it? Because it is still something that is so fresh in our minds. And it's not something that we can have a conversation about if we talk about how racism was in the 1950s that can change anything today. However, LGBTQIA stuff is absolutely on the docket. That's on the table because we can change that today. We have very, very clear ripples of and representation of, right? Because as a society, we moved forward. Like if you watch Deep Space Nine, that's like 1995, right? You've got a trans character on Deep Space Nine. Nobody thinks twice about it. You've got a whole episode about an anti-woman society and how this perfectly stereotypical Ferengi looks at a woman who dares to dream bigger, right? And accepts her and helps her move on to her next place of work, right? You've got all kinds of groundbreaking shit that's happening there and in other shows, and yet we've backslid to where we are now. So we were like, you know what? That's something we can change minds. We can change hearts. So let's have that be a thing where we talk about having to hide who we are as people, and we can have a really empowering queer storyline where we can kind of come out and take the roles that we want to take and live the lives and love who we want to live, right? But the racism, let's keep that in the past, right? We don't need to have that conversation. It was wonderful. It was eye-opening. I don't think I've ever had anybody that's been like a white dude GM start a session 0 like that and be like, baseline, what are we doing? It's a great show. I play Evany. She is an impossible person. She's like an Eartha Kitt meets Joan Crawford meets every role that Jessica Lange has ever played in American Horror Story. She's extra and fantastic. So if you enjoy me even a little bit, I highly recommend you go to 12-Sided Stories. Right after this, actually, I'm going to be leaving to go start a new podcast with 12-Sided Stories. It's a mothership game called Beyond the Outer. And that'll be the first episode will release, and then the rest of them are going to be for Patreon support. So if you have a few extra bucks and you're interested in supporting an awesome queer-led, mostly BIPOC cast and crew, please definitely do so. And then you can also find me every other Saturday on Matihi's channel doing What We Do in the Shallows, which is the 5e game I was talking about earlier. It's really great. And then I have a bunch of stuff that has not been announced that is really, really cool. So please check me out on socials, because boy howdy is my dance card full and sparkly. It is wonderful. There might be something with some familiar faces from Fate of the Ocean that's happening. That's a podcast coming out soon. There might be a Shakespearean charity stream production that I might be in. There might be some very interesting things coming up on this very channel that'll be announced soon for next month. And I have told myself that I'm going to do hopefully daily TikToks, one for all 29 days, because we get an extra special long Black History Month this year. 29 whole days just for us. Still the shortest month of the year. And for all of those days, I'm going to perform Black music on my ukulele, probably on TikTok. So
Heck yes.
That's a lot of stuff. I'm taking up a bunch of time.
That's what you are here to do. Thank you so much for spending your time with us, for educating us, for sharing your passion and your knowledge. You are incredible, and it is always a treat to get to share space with you. I am Kay. I am one of the GMs here on this channel and the co-host of this talk show. You can find us all across the internets. Our stuff has been, I think it's up there on this overlay. Our stuff's been going. Find us on the Twits. Find us on Blue Sky. We are on LifeSpace. Oh goodness, we're on too many places. LifeSpace, Twitch, and YouTube. We are inching ever closer to that YouTube monetization. So if you are willing to drop us a subscribe on YouTube, we appreciate it. It is free. Also, if you have $5 to spare and you want to support, we are part of the LifeSpace Boost program. If you support us over on LifeSpace, we keep $465 of your $4.99 subscription price for the next year. So if you would like to subscribe, that is a great way that you can help us, like with turbo mode on. I'm Kay. I'm Kay Damphir all over. I do too much. I talk too much. I might be playing the circus game tomorrow. It might be canceling. I play a My Little Pony tiefling who's an utter thembo. They're a nightmare. David, you. Who is you? What is you?
Hi, I'm David. Find Kay and I playing Baldur's Gate 3 Thursday, possibly Friday, or I will be gaming Friday. We'll see how our schedules, and then Saturday as well. Listen, if you aren't subscribed to our YouTube, go fix it. Fix it. If you aren't subscribed to our live space, type in the thing. I know it's a pain in the ass making a new account for things. People don't like new things. Please go make an account and throw us a follow. And then also join our Discord. Like, follow us on Twitter. But like, our watch time and subscribers on YouTube, we really appreciate it. Anyway, I've kept Candace past their time, and I am feeling guilty about that. But I am David, and this is the Table Talk Show, where every week we talk about TTRPG stuff, how to be a better player, how to be a better GM, how to be a better person, all with a focus on intersectionality and inclusivity so that everybody can have a good time.
And if you learned a thing and you have a buck to spare, go buy Candace's Ko-fi and drop them a buck because they are awesome and they have learned a lot in the School of Hard Knocks. So go follow Candace, go watch them perform. They are incredible. And hey, thank you, Matt. Yes, we appreciate the plugs for the Discord. Thank you all. Have a great evening. David and I will be streaming Kinley the Thembo Bard and Kessla the Teeth Obsessed Rogue in Baldur's Gate tomorrow. So if you need to actually see my Thembo in action, not tomorrow, Thursday. Come see us Thursday. Go see Candace. Bye, y'all. Thanks. You're awesome.